Welcome to the Not Old Better Show. I'm your host, Paul Vogelzang. As part of our Proud Parenting series, our guest today on the Not Old Better Show is Lisa Cini. For many in our Not Old Better audience, your parents are still living. Maybe it's just your mom, as is the case for me, or just your dad. But as they age, with respect to their living arrangements, there's much to think about, such as, do they go into a care facility or remain at their home? And another option, of course, is, do they come live with you? The option to live with you, often referred to today as a multi-generational household, is a very real and excellent solution. Our guest today is Lisa Cini, an award-winning and internationally recognized senior living designer. Her first book, The Future Is Here, Senior Living Reimagined, has received rave reviews. Now, she's just released her second book, Hive, The Simple Guide to Multigenerational Living, or How Our Family Makes It Work. And her family does make it work. They take care of each other. Lisa Cini refers to this as the front porch community, and it's a real trend today.
Part of the reason why I think multi-generational living is coming back is that for the longest time, we became decentralized. And what I'm seeing is that when we moved from the front porch to the backyard, and everybody put up their fences, we siloed and we moved away from each other, and now we're moving back to that kind of front porch community where we take care of each other, and we have more than just the parents and the children living in one household, and we're able to really do a wisdom share and actively learn and grow as a community.
That, of course, is our guest today, Lisa Cini, an award-winning senior living designer. Please join me in welcoming to the Not Old Better Show via Skype author, designer, Lisa Cini. Lisa Cini, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, I think this is just a really important subject, and I think my listeners, many will know of the phenomenon multi-generational living, but give us your definition as a real expert in this area.
Well, it's really, when people think about multi-generational, they think more than two generations living in one home. So it could be that you have your kids living with you, and then you also have a parent. In my case, however, I have not only my children and my husband and I, but also my parents that are almost in their 80s, and then my 95-year-old grandmother with dementia who is going to turn 96 here in February.
Wow, that is a multi-generational household. This is part of my life, or will be soon. My mother is 87, doing very well. But at some point, I think she's going to want to come live with us. And that would be probably my wife and I. And we have two boys, a 25-year-old son who is now living with us too after college. But it seems to be fairly widespread or common maybe in the U.S. Is it different in other countries?
It's actually a lot more common in other countries. And we used to do this. I mean, if you have or remember parents or grandparents during the Depression era and on, quite a few people even had boarders, and they would have multiple family members living together in the household. And then as we started to, as I say, move from the front porch to the backyard, and we had massive transportation where you were able to go and travel longer, you were no longer in that tight community where, kind of my big fat Greek wedding where you got your grandma living down the street, or Everybody Loves Raymond, where you're, all tight knit in one neighborhood and you rely on each other. So when we started doing that, the multifamily generational living broke apart, and that then you saw senior living sprout up. Yeah,
and so as it starts to get a little bit more widespread throughout the United States, within a family, how is the subject first discussed? I know in my own case, my two sisters and I kind of brought it up with my mom, but what's the normal kind of conversation like? Is it the parent bringing it up? Is it the child? Is it kind of everybody kind of thinking about this? What's that conversation like?
It's typically not the parent, because the parent doesn't want to be a burden, and they want to maintain their independence. What we found was that as siblings, there's 5 of us, that we started noticing that it was harder and harder for my parents to take care of their home, and they had my grandmother living with them. And so you start to dialogue about what are the options out there. And my company does senior living design, and for the top places around the country and in the world. And these these locations are 3,500 to 12,000 a month out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not something we were going to be able to afford for 3 people. That was for sure. Mm. And the other factor was 90% of seniors do not want to go into senior living. So you put those two things together and you start to look at options and, who's going to do what and who can do what, who's closest. And when we talked about it, my parents had always helped me to raise the kids and do what I needed to do. And so it made natural sense for us to sell our house, get a different house where we could all live in together. A lot of people don't do that. And, ride out the best years of all of our lives. And it's been hugely beneficial for everyone in the family.
We're with Lisa Cini. Lisa Cini is America's foremost authority on interior design of senior living facilities. As a designer, Lisa, tell us a little bit about the living arrangements themselves, what the home layout is like, and what do you recommend? Is mom, dad off kind of by herself, by themselves? Mm-hmm. Is it a kind of a granny flat? We're all familiar with that term, with kind of this separate entry and exit and kitchen.
Right.
Is it supposed to be more familial? What do you recommend?
Great. It was interesting because my parents, when we initially started talking about this and they wanted to move into just a smaller downsized house by themselves, they immediately bought ranch. Everybody thinks I've got to have less steps. It's less risk. But as an interior designer, I know that the studies show that steps aren't what makes people fall. It's medication, sleepiness, things on the floor, drop foot and that kind of thing. So I was taught, being in-house designer at Carrington that ended up becoming Sunrise, that mm-hmm. the thing that you want to do is keep people moving and doing steps. So when my parents and grandma came over, the first thing I did was said, okay, mom and dad, you're going to be upstairs in your own suite. So they have a den, they have a bedroom, and they have their own bathroom kind of laundry area, but they have steps, and they were not that thrilled about that. I mean, I caught them measuring them 3 times. They thought they were higher than what they had in their house. So it was a pretty funny situation. And, the fact is we have 6 knee replacements, I think 5 back surgeries, 1 shoulder surgery, and then the dementia. What you need to do is move more. And that's what therapists will tell you. So they are healthier actually now mm-hmm. after 3.5 years living here than they were before they moved in.
That's great to hear.
And then my grandma has her own little apartment suite, and it was a converted garage. And we have an entrance, separate entrance. However, we've kind of locked that off now because she has dementia. And we don't want her kind of outside during the cold weather without us knowing about it and so forth. She has her own living area and a bedroom. The bedroom is open to a bathroom that we designed for her so she can see the toilet at all times, mm-hmm. just to help cue her. And what we noticed, at least in my design, from a commercial aspect, from doing all these wonderful homes all over the country, was that if I reduced her choices, I could increase her independence.
Thanks for sharing that. These stories are all personal, and I appreciate you telling us a little bit about your own. I've read about you, and I think that there are these moments where this can be tough, but there are also these moments that can be really, really wonderful. I know in my own situation, my grandfather was kind of the storyteller of the family. I've kind of taken on some of that role now, but I think having this arrangement where grandfather, grandmother are present enables these kind of family stories to make their way throughout the younger generations. It becomes kind of a family legacy.
Oh, I am so glad you brought that up. One of the things that I notice is these diamonds and gold mine that we would never have had an opportunity to have access to. The tidbits and the stories that you just come about because you're living with each other all the time instead of just seeing each other on Sunday or, once a month at the home or something like that. So we ended up getting chickens. My husband got, all involved in this, and we live in the city. You were allowed to have 6 chickens. And before this, my daughter got into it, and my mother started getting into it. And what came out of it was I started to hear all these stories that at one point my grandmother on the Italian side had 800 chickens. And, I had never heard that story. I didn't know that she was a chicken farmer at one point, And then I had another wonderful story about my parents, my mom, ordering all these chickens out of the newspaper that were she thought that they were going to be cooked and cleaned and dead, sending my dad up to Amish country to pick them up. And he had borrowed someone's car, and here they were all live. and the interesting part of that, and getting them out of the car and all the whole mess of it. And I would have never had that kind of, stories, and my kids would have never got to laugh and hear and them, us really have that legacy that needs to be maintained, that thread throughout the family.
Again, thank you for sharing some of this. It's really good to hear some of these stories and how others are doing things. Lisa Cini, owner of Mosaic Design Studio, and we really just appreciate your enthusiasm and passion for this. I know you have a new book on its way out at some point in time. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Maybe tell us the title?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So Hive is the book that's been out for about a year, and that talks all about the multi-generational living and how we use technology and some of the social aspects and the interior design that we do. But Boom is coming out. We pre-released it in I think in January. We got number 1 in 4 countries, so it's very exciting. Mm-hmm. And it's the baby boomer's guide to leveraging technology so that you can preserve your independent lifestyle and thrive. And what that talks about is all this technology that I'm seeing out there that allows you to travel where you want to and live where you want to. And if you want to live in senior living, that's great. If you want to live in Florida, if you want to live on a cruise ship or in your own neighborhood, that's fantastic. But what's available to you? And then I also have Best Living Tech, which is an online company that curates all this tech so you have easy access to it. Anything from bidet toilet seats to things to help you sleep better.
Well, that sounds like a subject that we'd like to know more of, Lisa Cini. I'll just flat out ask you right here, will you come back and talk to us about that?
I would love to. I would love to.
Good. Well, sorry to put you on the spot there, but Lisa Cini, America's foremost authority on interior design of senior living facilities. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's been my honor. Thank you.
Thanks again, Lisa. My thanks to our guest today, Lisa Cini, an author and senior living designer. We will post links in the show notes for Lisa Cini's fascinating work on the subject of multi-generational living, as well as her books. Also, my thanks to you, the listeners, for joining me today. Your time is valuable, and I'm grateful you're spending some of it with me. I'm always interested in feedback, and you can leave that at iTunes, Google Play, or send me email at info@notold-better.com. Stay tuned for our next show, another great one, as we talk about better. The Not Old Better Show. Thanks to all.